Blessings, everyone. I want to take you to a cornfield in Iowa. It was here, standing in the midst of the corn stalks, that Ray Kinsella heard the whispered words, "If you build it, he will come." These epic words from the movie Field of Dreams triggered a journey where Ray demolished his entire cornfield, the only source of income for his family, and built in its place a world-class ball diamond. Ray thought he was building it for shoeless Joe Jackson. Jackson had been a starting outfielder in the major baseball leagues in the early 1900s. He ended up being banned from ever playing baseball for the rest of his life because of his alleged association with the Chicago White Sox and their fixing of the 1919 World Series. The story of shoeless Joe Jackson had been told and retold to Ray during his childhood by his now deceased father. In the movie, shoeless Joe Jackson and some other great ball players do show up to play on the ball diamond. The problem was only Ray, his family, and one other person could see them. To everybody else, all they saw was an empty ball field where a cornfield used to be. Ray faced public condemnation and ridicule and the impending financial disaster of his family. Yet he persevered because if he built it, he would come. Those words whispered in that cornfield had planted within Ray a seed of faith. In Matthew chapter 17, verses 14 to 20, in the New Revised Version of the Holy Bible, Jesus tells us how much faith we need to start on the journey. In the story, Jesus is confronted with a man kneeling at his feet and begging for Jesus to heal his son of epilepsy. The man shares the disciples had tried and they had failed. Jesus, even though frustrated with his disciples' inability to comprehend that they could heal, turned around and cured the young boy of his epilepsy. Later in private, the disciples said to Jesus, "Why couldn't we heal that boy?" In Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, we hear Jesus explain why they failed. Because of your little faith. For truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, "Move here from there," and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. What starts us on our spiritual journey? Is it a question that whispers to us that there must be more to this life? Is it a void within us that seeks to be filled, and no matter how many people or things we put in the void, it still is not full? Is it the seed of faith resting within us, awaiting to be awakened to take us on our spiritual journey? It is interesting that Ray's faith was awakened in a field of corn, where each stalk of corn was started from a single seed. Ray had questions. Ray didn't believe what happened. He must have imagined it. It couldn't have been real. Maybe I hadn't had enough sleep. Do we not, when we get our first glimpse of spiritual awareness, sometimes go, "I don't know what happened, but no, it can't be," and we just shake it off and we go back to our living our lives? But then we receive another glimpse, and then something else happens, and we begin to realize that maybe this is the truth. We want what we're becoming aware of. We want what we're glimpsing, what we're feeling. I call the next steps on our spiritual journey walking in blind faith. We have become to believe that there is something more, and we are willing to do what we have to do to get it. Ray dug up his cornfield and replaced it with a ball diamond. We dig up old beliefs, old thoughts, and old ways of acting. I go back to my early days in Unity where I had to make some profound changes in thinking. I had to come to realize that God was not an entity external to me. God was principle. God was spirit. God was love. And God was all good and everything and everywhere, which meant also inside me. I also had to come to understand that I could choose from where my thoughts came. I could choose them from my human mind, which draws upon what's happening around us and what my senses tell me, or I could draw from divine mind, my spiritual oneness, my divinity, the Christ consciousness within each of us. Back to Ray. As I mentioned earlier, Shoeless Joe Jackson did show up, and when he appeared, he said to Ray, "There are a whole bunch of great old ball players that want to come play ball again. Can they?" And Ray said, "Of course they can." And as the days came and went, more and more ball players came out to play. Is that not what happens to us as we grow in our understanding of unity, teachings, and principles, and when we grow in our ever-expanding faith? At first, we may only see one change, a simple one. Might be a shift in some thinking about something we've been so adamant about. Then as we start to experience the changes, more of them start to come. We maybe smile more. We may be quicker to move out of anger, resentment, and hurt to a place of centeredness and calmness. We seem not to care so much about ourselves and see where others may require assistance. We begin to intuitively sense what are the right words and actions. In fact, people begin to acknowledge what we have already become to know is happening to us. They see our divine light shining. Remember, Ray thought the message, "If you build it, he will come," was about Shoeless Joe Jackson. It wasn't. The he was Ray's father. His father had dreamt of having a professional baseball career, and he had laid that dream aside to care for his family. He had worked hard his life to care for Ray and his mom. Ray, a 20-some-year-old man in the 60s in the hippie movement, had really struggled with the fact his dad had laid down a dream to work. It had got to the point where Ray became estranged from his father. In fact, his father had never even met Ray's wife. For anyone who has not seen the movie, my next words may give away the ending. For me, the ending depicts that moment when, through our continued focus on our spiritual awareness, we allow ourselves to forgive, to heal, and to only know divine love. Before I close, I would like each of you to grab that envelope that was on your chair this morning, the one that said, "Please do not open until someone asks you to." Well, I am asking you to open it. Inside, you will find a seed, a mustard seed. I'd like you to place it in your palm of your hand. I'd like you to feel how light it is, to run your finger over it, to see the smallness of it. To choose to be here today, each of you has sensed and are in the process of, or have already fully awakened to the mustard seed of faith within you. It is from this tiny seed you will find the faith to move mountains, to create a life where no matter what is occurring, you can live in grace, peace, and love. And so it is.